He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, and that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. His number is 666. The Bible indicates that the world will utilize a universal currency in the end times. According to the Apostle John, the Antichrist will appear in the course of a 7-year tribulation period, causing everyone to do what is mentioned in the above revelation. And in one other place in Timothy, it's clearly written that 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10, King James Version, "For the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith, and pierced themselves through with many sorrows." Money has no life of its own. It's unable to act on its own. It's ignorant of both good and evil activities. It is, in essence, neutral. Regardless of how many scriptures in the Bible address money, money will only follow out what you say. So what do we conceive from all of this if we look upon the current world economic order? Is our money going to disappear near the end times and a new digital currency will emerge? Let's have a deeper look. In the latest occurrence of events, the Silicon Valley Bank was closed down by US banking regulators earlier in March following its abrupt collapse. It was the country's second largest bank collapse in history. SVB was a very profitable regional bank that specialized in serving the technology industry. You probably hadn't heard of it until you worked in that industry. It had only a few dozen branches, but billions of dollars in deposits. This can be linked with the fact that Christians are aware that the Bible foresees a day when one person would rule the whole world economy. But how will this come about? We could know the answers now. Indeed, scriptural and technical evidence indicates that a cashless society and one world economy are not only feasible, but also unavoidable. Global financial markets are brutally volatile, and crucial indicators of financial health are fast deteriorating. So, are we on the verge of a worldwide economic collapse? Does that mean that we should be preparing ourselves for a biblical prophecy? It might be time now that we start asking this question to ourselves and wake up before it's too late. Let us first look into how it all happened and what actually caused the bank to come to an end. The bank failure was caused by a run on the bank. The corporation was neither bankrupt or even near to bankruptcy, at least not until clients began fleeing. However, banking is a business that relies on trust as much as it does on cash, and once it runs out, the game is over. In only one day, 4 of the country's largest banks, JP Morgan, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and Citigroup lost $52 billion in market value. The March 9 meltdown was precipitated after Silicon Valley Bank experienced a 60% decline on Wall Street in a single day. California officials declared SVB bankrupt the next day. The bank's management opted to dispose of $21 billion of bonds at a $1.8 billion loss. In part, it shows up because many of those bonds were yielding only 1.79% on average at a time when interest rates had risen dramatically and the bank was beginning to look like an underperformer with regard to its peers. It's unclear whether the bond sale or fundraising were done under duress, or at least at first. Its purpose was to reassure investors. However, it had the opposite effect. It so startled the market that the bank's highly clever customer base of venture capitalists directed their portfolio clients to withdraw their money in large numbers. The bank and its advisors may also have made an operational error. The General Atlantic equity transaction could have been finalized overnight, but the bank's management elected to sell converted preferred shares, which couldn't be sold until the next day. That gave investors, and more importantly clients, time to pick at their brains and cast doubt on the business, resulting in a deposit evacuation. A detailed post-mortem on why the bank collapsed is underlying, but it appears that the collapse may have been prevented if management had communicated more effectively with its customers and the public, creating a confidence vacuum. However, behind the collapse was a provable issue that other institutions should be aware of. The corporation had invested its deposits in low-interest rate bonds that it had maintained on its books for a lengthy period of time on a hold-to-maturity basis. That means it didn't have to make those bonds to market until they were sold, giving investors a skewed image of its balance sheet. There's no issue as long as the bank doesn't need to liquidate hold-to-maturity assets to fulfill withdrawal demands. However, when a bank is forced to sell at a loss, things become more difficult. The causes? SVB collapsed owing to a variety of economic problems, one of which was that it was overly focused on its core industry. It was a technology bank focused on equity investments and venture capital. The collapse also occurred because of the problems residing in the bank's management. When rising loan rates caused the IT industry to struggle, SVB felt the same way. Meanwhile, Signature Bank was catering to the crypto business, which has also suffered difficulties in the last year. The same is true for Silvergate, another bank that is now closing its doors. The SVB failure might be the first major bank failure in more than 2 years, while smaller banks fail on a regular basis. 4 failed in 2020, although you may have heard very little about them, which might have been due to the pandemic. However, 4 more failed in 2019, before the outbreak. There were also a handful of failures in 2017 and 2016. The bank's demise served as a reminder that the financial system has multiple flaws, including lack of regulation for banks with less than $250 billion in assets. Given the already present worry of a recession, the drop undermined consumer confidence in the economy much more. So, the SVB crisis and tight global economic conditions are indicators that there's a biblical prophecy to watch? If major US banks experience a shock comparable to SVB, the European financial system will collapse within the US. Some experts are expecting that such a crisis will eventually occur. In 1984, the late Herbert W. Armstrong argued that a big banking crisis in America could abruptly lead to European nations uniting as a new world power, bigger than the entire Soviet Union or the United States. This recent catastrophe serves as a warning that the banking crisis might occur at any time. We need to keep an eye on Europe after it happens. Revelation 17 describes the unity of Europe and the emergence of 10 totalitarian kings. According to the Bible, Europe will respond to challenges with greater unity and authoritarian leadership. Mr. Armstrong said it would be sparked by a financial catastrophe about 40 years ago. Are we currently on the verge of this crisis? Well, we might be. Revelations chapter 13 verse 5, New King James Version. And he was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and he was given authority to continue for 42 months. Genesis chapter 11, verse 1 through 4, New King James Version. Now the whole earth has one language and one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. Then they said to one another, Come, let us make bricks, and bake them thoroughly. They had brick for stone, and they had asphalt for mortar. And they said, Come, let us build ourselves a city, and a tower whose top is in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth. These revelations could be the indicators that we might be living in those times, as the events in the end times will not happen suddenly, but will be a gradual preparation, just like a buildup. So everything that is happening today could be an indication of that buildup. This could be the one world agenda. The end of the world, one world order will attempt to instill in us the same thinking and bring out the one united way of life. And that way of life will be founded on the beast's and its false prophets' doctrine, beliefs, and teachings. So, do today's believers need to be worried about accidentally taking the mark? One thing to be sure of is that the Antichrist will ascend to power before the mark of the beast is implemented. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 3, John chapter 17 verse 12. In other words, present believers do not need to be concerned about mistakenly receiving the mark of the beast. It is, however, easy to see how our growing cashless society is laying the framework for a unified global economy. We have the impression that the storm clouds are gathering over the financial world. Cryptocurrency and NFTs are only 2 examples of how technology already exists to carry out the Antichrist's plan. The beast will deliver his world through the false prophet, and the false prophet will establish a global religion. But the question here is, how will all those be done? How will a system be designed in such a manner that everyone wants to follow it? How will countries that respect diversity readily cede sovereignty to one man? And the answer is found in the seals. The Antichrist will join the scene when the first seal is broken, followed by the seals of war, death, natural calamities, economic crises, and so on. The upheaval caused by the shattering of all the seals will push the world into a corner. With so many calamities to deal with, people and presidents alike will fear and call for unity. They will begin to argue that it's preferable for one person to administer remedies so that the assistance may be provided freely. Many of these systems already exist. As an example, the International Court of Justice has the authority to bring a South African citizen to trial in Europe. Using the current coronavirus epidemic as an example, we can observe that while nations kept their sovereignty, they all appeared to respond in the same way. The same choices were made. Poorer countries are pleading with the IMF for assistance. requesting assistance is not an issue, but we have no clue what constraints are tied to such financial assistance. By world standards, nothing is free. Everything is a bargain. How much will it cost? Your money is fine for now, but the shortcomings of that system are gradually leading us to the direction of the Antichrist's global financial dominance. What are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed today's video and found it interesting, then make sure to leave us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click on the bell icon to always be updated with the most exciting content as soon as it's uploaded. Thanks for watching. See you again soon in another video.